Hi, everyone. Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and our guest today is Django Grace. Django is a freshman at Brattleboro Union High School. He's been an active participant for awareness of climate change in this community, and he's also on the Brattleboro Selectboard Energy Committee. Django is an avid skier, especially during winter, and he is with us today. Django, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You are a freshman at the high school, and you did middle school at Hilltop, and then before that, Academy School. So you went right from middle school to the high school during the pandemic, right? Whole
Yeah.
new kettle of fish. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
Um, well, I don't really have anything to compare it to,
Right.
so I don't know what it's like to go from a Montessori school to a high school, a public high school without a pandemic. But I mean, I can tell you it's not as bad as it would have been in like a teenage romance movie. Um, but it was pretty rough at times. Yeah, so I mean, the pandemic started like halfway or maybe two-thirds of the way through eighth grade. So I mean, at the point where I entered high school, I was already used to doing Zoom,
Mm.
which I don't like very much. But I mean, it's just so hard to get to know people even now. Luckily I had the opportunity to play soccer. So I got to know a lot of great dudes that way.
Hmm.
And I mean, I had friends that were already there, and yeah, I went to academy school before it.
Yeah.
So I knew a bunch of people from academy school.
Yeah. So you've gone since kindergarten with a lot of those kids.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess so.
that's pretty great. And having the opportunity to play outside or to, do soccer outside and that kind of activity must make a huge difference.
Yes, big shout out to Chris Brewer and everyone who made it happen. It was a really
That's
great season.
that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. Yeah, having coaches, that are supporting you and whatever you're doing is pretty fabulous. Um, so are you back in the high school at all? Or are you doing?
We're 2 days a week, and then we have a half day on Wednesday, and then we're Zoom for the rest.
You are, okay. And that's going okay for you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't like Zoom at all whatsoever, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to see people as much as I can.
That's right. Yes. And I would think that maintaining friendships and or creating new ones during this time is something completely different as well.
It's different, yeah. Uh, I'm in a pod
Uh,
with a few good friends, but yeah, it's tough to meet new people when you can only see a third of their face.
and going back a little bit, you are a native Brattleborian.
I am
You're
native Brattleboro.
born and
Yep.
raised here
I've lived in this house for 13 years, and I was born like over there.
at the hospital.
Yeah.
Also, your family is the Sandglass family. Like a good part of your family is the Sandglass family. And so you had that in your environment. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that because you know, their their whole theater, the puppetry. What was your relationship to Sandglass as a kid?
I've always I've always taken theater for granted because it's just been such like a part of my life. So my mom's from Germany, and my grandma's a puppeteer, and my grandpa's a puppeteer, and my aunt's a puppeteer, and my mom's a puppeteer. Um, and my
How do you
dad's
how
as
do you feel
well.
about puppets?
Okay, so when I was little, I actually surprisingly I did not like puppets at all. You think a lot of kids, oh, the puppets are great, but y- like my family did a lot of like not little like kidsy like hand puppet shows. Like it was more like abstract, cool, weird theater. But the puppets were like this weird, grotesque giants that were like taking my parents away from me.
Uh,
When I was so I actually didn't like them. But then like I grew into it, and by the time I was like, 4 or 5, I was into it. People hear puppeteer and they think like person performing at children's birthday parties.
mm,
Um, I can tell you that that is a incredible minority of the puppet community. It's actually it's a crazy thing. I've met people from all over the world through my family, and yeah, and people think it's super easy too, and it's not. So like puppet theater is it's so you're putting it's super hard physically because you're putting your whole body
Mm-hmm.
into an object. And strangely, like that's given me a lot of perspective into a lot of the things I do. I don't do a lot of puppetry myself, but like I have, and I've been around it my whole life. So it's a very interesting way for a person to connect to the world through an object.
Yes.
So you could kind of say that like with a lot of the work I do, like you learn how to connect yourself to the world through a medium, kind of.
Right.
That
Right.
sounds super abstract and weird, but yeah, it's an
Well,
important skill.
well, there's a certain embodiment that happens, right, with
Mhm.
puppets. When you
Yeah,
say, you're using your whole body and your mind and your heart, right? And
yeah, you're
spirit.
breathing with this
Right.
little thing, and it's
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. And Sandglass is not your usual puppet theater.
no.
Yeah. It's pretty fabulous. Yeah. So, as a little kid, what are some early memories for you in terms of activities, the things that you were really engaged in?
Um, I was a quiet kid. I think I like to draw
Mm,
a lot. My mom's also an oil painter, and my dad's a glass blower and a sculptor, and well, he does a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I was always happy to play with the little things.
yeah.
Um, Still have a bunch of drawings that I made when I was little.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty abstract. I mean, I was drawing before I could walk well, I guess. And also like I just had a group of really good friends. Like
Mm,
they're my brothers and they still are. Um and I was always happy to just do whatever I was doing with them. Like I was never I was never like a sports kid. Like I only started playing sports 2 years ago.
mm,
It was just me and my brothers.
yeah.
um yeah.
Was it a lot of time outside?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I I don't really remember that part of it. I just remember being with friends and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And you're
It's
still
Brad
close.
yeah, Brattleboro is like such a great community. Well, it's great in some aspects and then it's also like everybody, which can be awesome. Like it was
Mm.
great for me growing up because like everybody, but at the same time like everybody. So it's like ugh,
And they know you.
can get a little weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was like walking down Main Street the other day and someone was like, "Oh, Django." And like I find out they were like there when I was born. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to hear that." That's weird.
That is
Yeah.
strange. And just to go back to the drawing for a second, can you remember what that was like as a kid to sit down with a crayon or a pencil or paints and draw? The kind of feeling you had?
That's just what I did. I There wasn't like a euphoric sensation or something. It was just Django drawing. Like that's just how I connected
Yeah.
to things. A lot of the times I would draw things that I wanted to see or I wanted to have. I had this phase where I would draw like I don't know objects I wanted to have or like I would like see something in a store and be like, "Oh, that's cool." So I would like draw these dudes. A lot of the times I hate to say it, but, like, I had this gun phase where I was, like, really into weapons, but
Hmm.
obviously my parents were like, "You can't have, like, a bunch of toy guns." So I remember drawing all these, like, swords and guns,
Yeah.
which sounds super weird, but I was, like, really into it.
Yeah.
Um, and I grew out of that, but, um, yeah, so I have a lot of drawings of things that I wanted.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's interesting. Do you still draw?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
not too much, but
Do you
yeah.
any other kinds of art?
Uh I mean, everything I do is art. Uh, but,
A good
uh, yeah, I mean, I like theater a lot.
Mhm.
Sadly, that's not really available right now.
Your awareness of climate change happened when you were pretty young. Can you talk about that a little bit? Can you remember what the things that kind of compelled you?
Yeah. Um, I've always been a person that's been very connected with the winter,
Hmm.
and I don't know how that I mean, I live in Vermont, but other than that, I don't really know how it happened.
Hmm.
I mean, it was like that even before I started skiing, and I just like I just feel so at home when it's like snowing out and when it's cold
Mm,
out. And um so I learned that there was a threat to that when I was really little. I think I was yeah, it was my music teacher in second grade first told us about sea level rising. Tony Speranza, he's a great dude. I have no idea where he is now, but he it was some apocalyptic Bob Dylan song or something, and he was talking about something. I don't quite remember how it happened, but he ended up explaining to us that there was a threat to the natural world and the world we were going to grow up in, and that mortified me. And then so I I somehow ended up talking to my mom about it too, and like my understanding of it was that I have this world that I am in love with, and there was a threat to that, especially to the winter that I cared about so much. So, um, I was actually noticing it too. Like it was raining more and more in the winter. Like we
mhm,
have shorter ski seasons,
mm,
and there's just less snow. And then I saw it on a bigger scale too as I looked into it more as I got older. Like it's a huge problem. And at that point in my life, I was not seeing anybody. Like I wasn't really connected to the mainstream media or anything, but I was not seeing anybody do squat about it. And that was the scariest thing was like my world is dying and no one is doing anything about it.
mm, mhm,
So seeing that, and I was kind of like, I would always like watch the movies or like read the stories, and there was always like a superhero that was coming to save the world, and
right,
I was
yeah,
not seeing a superhero.
yeah,
And I mean, this sounds totally cheesy, but at some point I was like, I have to do something or else I'm just gonna go crazy. So I decided I was gonna be my own superhero when I was in like third grade, which just came out as I was drawing. I started drawing little machines
wow,
that were gonna suck in car exhaust and stop it. And so yeah, at that point, like my understanding of it was pretty small, but I had enough of an understanding of it to realize, yeah, there's a threat to my future.
right,
And so I just did whatever I could, and then my my knowledge of it kind of expanded, and I started to look into the science of it more. Sadly, I never actually learned about it in elementary school,
mm,
save for the one independent study I did in sixth grade.
mhm,
So that's something I'm hoping that's changed because it's very important.
yeah.
So I mean, I was just looking into carbon sequestration on my own time, um, and then all of a sudden there was a protest that I heard about, um, and I had been to like the Women's March on when Trump was elected, and I heard this protest was happening for climate change, and I was like, oh my, I was like, great. So I went to this thing and I found that like protesting isn't like my favorite form of like doing what I can about climate change, but it's standing on the side of the road with a sign and like telling people what I thought felt so good.
Did it? Yeah.
Um, yeah. Uh, yeah, I didn't really have like I just kept doing it, I guess. And I'm still not like a huge protester
Mhm,
guy. Like everyone always thinks, oh, Django's an activist. He always stands with the sign, but that's really not what it's about. Like activism for me is doing what I can
right,
to save myself. Like it's not a left wing belief or anything for me. It's I'm saving the world or doing what I can to. And I mean, I've grown into a community where I found other people that are care about it a lot. Um, yeah, so I mean, after that first protest, I was going to more of them. I was organizing them, and then there was opportunities to do more like radical things. So like there was the die-in, which is super controversial. Even within my head, I was like, do I want to piss people off?
and this
Um,
was the heifer stroll in
this was the
2019.
heifer stroll,
Right,
2 summers ago.
yeah,
Uh, and I eventually came to the conclusion I was like, I care about this more than I care about people getting mad at me.
mhm,
Um, I was in middle school, so obviously I was worried about kids being like, "Oh, that's Django. He's the eco nut." I was like, "I'm at Montessori school. Like, what's gonna hurt me?" So I did the protest. I went in the road. I stopped the parade. I still wonder, like, was that the right? this shit. Well, actually, no, I don't because I think it was great.
Hmm.
Um, and the police movie, and a lot of people got mad at me, and a lot of people were like, Django, that's great. Um, yeah, so from that point, it's only gone forward. I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of opportunities to do protests right now during COVID.
Right, right.
Um,
Yeah. And you were
yeah,
you were part of the global climate strike, which was also that September of the same
yeah,
year.
I
Yeah.
spoke.
And
Yeah,
that was local. You spoke at the
yeah, that was
conference.
that was very local. Yeah, it's just whenever I'm in a place where there's other people that are doing like when I can motivate people, like I'm a motivator. So when I'm at one of those places, I feel like, oh, there's people around me. We are getting people off their butts, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that's one of the best feelings in the world.
Yes. And also forming your own community really of like minds. And I think your definition of activism is about acting, about
Yeah.
yeah, about doing something that demonstrates, all the words that we use, but you're demonstrating the things that you believe in and the things that you're concerned about.
Hmm.
And I would guess the things that you're a little afraid of as well, as we all are.
Yeah, I'm terrified all the time.
Really.
Um, yeah, it's I still don't. There's so many technical things that happen whenever anybody wants to make a change that it just scares me to think that we have such a big shift to make within the next years. And my biggest fear is looking back and knowing that I didn't do enough, or
Mm-hmm.
thinking not me specifically, but like the whole world, like just knowing back and seeing a missed opportunity to have literally saved the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that sounds very like apocalyptic, but statistically, we will come to a tipping point where it's going to become irreversible, and that's factual. Like that's the reality. There will be ways to reverse it, but the most likely time we have to reverse it will be within the next few years, like
Mm-hmm.
young part of my life, which is also scary. It's like I want to be a kid.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah. And I'm wondering as you're speaking to Django, where do you go for solace?
I go to the river. That sounds weird. I live right on the whetstone.
Hmm.
Um, this is one place, but whenever I'm angry or whatever, I just go to the river and I just sit there. And a lot of times, that's one place I go for solace, and the other place I go for solace is just to doing something.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
specifically work. And I do this whenever I get mad, um, at anything, not even just the climate crisis, but I'll just be like, oh, I'm really pissed off. Now I'm gonna go research something, or
Mm.
I'm gonna go work on some kind of change in the community or whatever. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's
And
just how I connect to something bigger than my problems.
right, to find out more about it, for
Yeah,
one thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not just research. It's like, okay, examining like what could I do for this community, or maybe there's some work for the committee, or maybe there's I don't know. I'm doing an independent study right now, so around sustainability.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, whatever I can like grab onto something and like wrestle with it. Like
Yeah.
that's what I
Yes. Yeah. And your work with the select board energy committee, how is that working? Because you are the only youth on that committee. Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct.
Yes. How is that?
Uh, everyone always asks me about it and wants me to be like, well, it's really hard because I'm the only kid. Um, it's not. People always say I'm representing youth, but it's like I'm the only youth that I know that's really like doing that kind of thing. And I would love to see more kids my age do this kind of thing, and I would love to see my friends step up and do it with me, but I'm only representing well, I don't want to say I'm representing myself because obviously it's not about me. Like I'm working on a problem that's much bigger. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that I'm a kid. It's like I have a specific viewpoint that I'm gonna bring, and I have a
Yeah.
specific amount of will to fight that I'm gonna bring, and that's me. It's all very complicated. You can look at it at a big scale and be like, oh, so globally we need to put this many wind turbines in this area.
Hmm.
But the second that in Brattleboro that we want to in any community that you actually want to institute something, there's so much that needs to happen which people don't realize.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to get out there and say something. That's the first step, like motivating.
Right.
But then becoming the one that's getting motivated and then doing something, like that's where it gets tough.
You have done a lot of research into local history and the
Mhm.
local what's happening, what has happened locally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll give a outline of what my independent study is. It's basically, um, I dropped a high school class, and in its place, I did an independent study, which is a great thing B.U.H.S offers. Anyone who's going there should definitely look into it. You basically just apply, and then you can uh go wherever you want to go, and you can get a certain amount of credits for it. So I'm getting the same amount of credits that I would be in without just taking 4 classes this semester.
Oh,
But
wow.
basically, I'm just kind of getting an overview of how Brattleboro fits into this problem
Yep.
with a
Yep.
lot of time, and it's a lot of research based. So the first step has been kind of, which I'm still in, is I've been looking into the history of Brattleboro's place as we relate to energy and energy production, distribution, and use. And I'm finding out a lot of stuff, and I encourage everybody watching this to look into it, Brattleboro history, because it's so important to know the place you're in and how it relates to the world, like going back.
Yep.
Like there's no standpoint we can't move forward unless we know what's behind us.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm learning this town is we were a mill town, right?
Yeah.
So the industrial revolution, we were so important. We have a convergence of 3 rivers and we're right at the center of it. And then as the world fell in love with petrol products and like fossil fuels, we kind of lost that connection with the place we're in, and we lost the
Mm.
um we lost our importance, so to speak, I guess,
Yeah.
um as relating to like the rest of industry.
Hmm.
So it just kind of took the wind out of what was going on here, and
Hmm.
we had something that was great. Like we were on an upward, really big upward path, and we still are. Brattleboro is still like a great place. It's still totally happening, but you look at the second we hit fossil fuels, we just flatlined. Like the growth here just flatlined, and it's still flatlined.
Hmm.
But I'm sensing that there's going to be another up spike because as I look at this, you see the growth happening, the fossil fuels, what's going to happen after?
Right.
And I'm realizing fossil fuels are such a temporary thing.
Mm.
Like we are in a place right now where fossil fuels were just so easy for that amount of time. And now we have no choice but to get out of them. And where are we going to go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just looking forward to being a part of that change, like getting out of that and bringing us back on the upward.
And right now, in the middle of a pandemic, or hopefully towards the end of the pandemic, we don't know what it's going to be like.
I look forward to connecting with people again.
Right. Yeah.
Not that I'm not connecting with people right now, but it's just so hard over this. This is a block here, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Um, yeah, the kind of products that excite me are just anything where it's like it's visceral and I get a bunch of people to do it with me. Like I don't like to work alone very much. Like
Hmm.
I think I can work fast and I can work efficiently alone, but when I'm with a big group of people or with an organization,
Yeah.
um, like the energy committee, like
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that's like, oh, when everybody can put their mind together and when we can pick out the nitty gritty and we can figure stuff out and like decision making plan out, like that's the kind of thing. So I love being on the energy committee, and I mean it's so hard, it's very complicated, um, and I still municipal town government is so weird, but yeah, that's the kind of thing I love to do.
What kind of music do you listen to?
What kind of music do I listen to?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm a hip hop guy.
Are you?
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar,
Hmm.
J. Cole,
Hmm.
some Mac Miller,
Hmm.
a little bit of Pop Smoke. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, rest in peace, Pop Smoke, and Mac Miller. Yeah, and I also I'm kind of getting into classic rock. That's some good stuff.
Let me have a few examples of what classic rock is to you.
Okay. Let's see. Red Hot Chili Peppers, really good.
Uh-huh.
And Jimi Hendrix. Um, I like Chuck Berry. I don't really know if that's really considered classic rock. Beatles, great. Um, Let me see. I wish I had my playlist open because there's a bunch of stuff in there. Yeah.
It's a pretty wide range.
Yeah, I guess classic rock covers a lot of different things. I don't know. I wasn't there when it was big, so
You do a lot of skiing, and you could talk about downhill a little bit. I'd also love to know what else you do for fun.
okay. Uh, Skiing is kind of like my guilty pleasure if I'm talking about climate change because it's like, oh, lifts are so bad for the environment.
Mhm.
But when I'm shooting down that hill, it's like I don't have a care in the world. There's a ski map above me. That's in Utah. I skied there a while ago. My uncle works out there. Um,
Nice.
yeah, skiing is it's one of the things that like I hold on to so dearly, and it's one of the things I fight for
Mm.
when I'm fighting for climate change because my seasons are getting shorter. It's like usually I'd be skiing right now, and we have no snow outside.
Have you used skins at all going up the hill that
I
way?
haven't. That's one thing I want to get
Yeah,
into. That's less of a lift.
super workout.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to do that in Utah.
No, no. Well, I mean, I would, but yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
Skiing is like it's one of those things. It's like I have no idea what's so appealing about it. Like if you think about it in the macro, it's like you're shooting down a hill. You're at a much higher likeliness of seriously injuring yourself, and like you're shooting off of jumps and like careening down these metal rails that are sticking out and weirdly shaped.
Right.
But it's like when you're doing it, it's like it's something I can't explain. It's like something that's so great and so amazing to like be pushing those boundaries in such a beautiful place.
Yeah, and Django, it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
It's exciting to go that fast, and it's exciting to be outside and going down a hill where it's beautiful and where you're having a really good time. Yeah, it's a very cool thing to do. Skiing is great. Um, well, this has been quite lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll have to hear more from you as time goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope to see you around town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, stay tuned, everybody. Uh, Let me see what's happening. Oh, town plan is coming out. That's a big deal. Everybody should look into that.
Mm-hmm.
People on the planning committee have done a bunch of amazing work
Great.
for
That's
the next.
great. And that'll be covered in the papers too. So,
Yeah.
we're so lucky. We've got the Commons for our weekly, and we've got the Reformer for our daily. And we've got all kinds of, we've got radio as well as BCTV, which is always putting out great things and covering all the select board meetings, along with church services and all kinds of other things. So, yeah, stay tuned, right? We'll stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Yeah. My advice to everybody is never let the momentum leave the back of your mind because like there's so much happening here in Brattleboro right now that no one knows about. And all it takes is you looking and deciding, all right, I'm going to be a part of this now.
Excellent last words, Django. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone out in our audience for joining us today and listening to Django and what he is up to. We are a weekly show. You can catch us on BCTV. You can stream the shows. There are a bunch to choose from. I'm sure there are people that you would recognize who have come on Here We Are and talked a little bit about their stories. So thanks again to Django Grace for being with us today, and we will see you next week.